Hello, my name is Jeff Gunther, and I've been a therapist since 2005. And before we dive into this incredibly easy formula to optimize your therapist directory profile and how it can seriously change your business, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. So I grew up in LA, and I went to school there, and a couple weeks after graduation, I moved up to Portland, Oregon, and I never looked back. One reason I moved here was because I was able to start a private practice with just a master's degree, an office, and a supervisor. Also, my family was driving me crazy, and it's way too hot in Southern California. It's pretty gloomy and rainy in Portland, and that is fantastic for business. When I launched my practice, I became obsessed with ranking on page 1 of Google. I got crazy into search engine optimization and wanted to rank high for search terms like therapy for codependency in Portland. I found out that I was really into marketing and technology and went on to teach workshops to other therapists on how they can market themselves online. I even developed a really easy to understand SEO course just for therapists that I'll give you all free access to at the end of this video. While I was helping therapists rank high in online searches, I started to build a local mental health directory to compete against Psychology Today here in Portland. And just like with SEO, I became obsessed with making the best local therapist directory for my town. It launched at the start of 2013, and by the end of that year, I was ranking higher than Psychology Today and GoodTherapy. For the last 5 years, PTC has outranked both of them and attracts on average 20,000 visitors a month, which is a ton for a local therapy directory. A couple years ago, I decided to really go for it and create a national therapist directory. I wanted everyone outside of Portland to have the opportunity to be on a directory that they were proud of and was different than the tired old directories that have been out there for decades. So I created TherapyDen. It launched in the summer of 2018, and it's growing every day and is working its way up the online search rankings. I couldn't be more proud of it. And one of the differences between TherapyDen and directories like Psych Today or GoodTherapy is that it has a mandate to fight racism, homophobia, transphobia, and all other forms of hate. It's also got a great user design and was designed using my favorite colors. Since I've been running a couple therapist directories for a while now, I get to do deep dives into the data to find out exactly why certain therapists are attracting more clients than other therapists. I don't have to guess about why some profiles are better than others. I have all the numbers about which therapists do well and which ones don't. There are concrete reasons why some therapists do amazingly well on therapist directories. The therapists that are killing it on my sites don't have to do any additional marketing. They can just pay their small monthly fee and get dozens of client referrals every month. There are specific things that you can do to your profile right now to attract more client referrals. Getting client referrals doesn't have to be a mystery. It's not random, it's not an art, it's a science. And this training is evidence-based, just how therapists and insurance companies like it. And today I'm going to explain exactly what you need to do in order to optimize your therapist directory profiles and fill up your caseload. For all you therapists that don't have directory profiles out there, why not? Although you probably aren't watching this training, but the return on investment is bonkers. For around $30 a month, you can attract multiple clients a month. Even if you only get one regular client a year on a directory and that client came in 12 times and paid $100 a session, then you've made your money back plus so much more. So whether we like it or not, Google loves directories. They're massive and have tons of content, and Google ranks them first. That's not to say your little practice website can't come up on the first page, because it can, but more often than not, online searchers are going to find themselves on a directory before they see your site. And you should be where clients are looking. It's marketing 101. Directory listings also help your personal website. The more places on the internet that point to your website, the higher you'll rank in Google. So that's a no-brainer. Also, sites like Psychology Today that have had a monopoly and haven't had to change with the times are eventually going to be forced to update their outdated sites. So if you sign up for a site like TherapyDen or a local alternative that is maybe like more progressive or niche oriented, then the bigger sites will need to evolve with the times, which is a really important thing for all of our communities. Along those same lines, if you don't like a certain directory site because you don't resonate with their mission or search filter options or fee structure or whatever, you can subscribe to a different one that matches your values. Subscribing to smaller sites gives them a chance to compete with the bigger ones. It's also a smart way to brand yourself. When clients are looking around the internet and see you in multiple places, they start to trust you more. And like I said, your practice should be showing up in all the places that clients seek services. So today, I'm going to be focusing on 3 popular therapist directories: Psychology Today, Good Therapy, and TherapyDen. I am biased towards one of these directories. I'll let you figure out which one that is, but just like a good couples therapist, and I'm a good one, I'll do my very best to treat all the directories the same. I promise to try my hardest not to take sides. All 3 have their pros and cons, but for the most part, they all follow the same formula. They have similar search functions, layouts, and profile pages. You can upload photos and a video, choose some specialties, and type up a bit about yourself. When a client is looking for a therapist, they'll read every single thing on your profile. They're not messing around. This isn't an impulse buy. You need to realize that they may have been searching for a therapist for months, and they've been thinking about it for years possibly. They don't just visit your profile once. They go back on average 8 times before reaching out to you. So every single thing you put on your profile needs to be deliberate. And we're going to go over all those things. Luckily, there isn't just one cookie cutter way to create a profile. You can go in different directions and be successful, but there are some major pitfalls that you'll need to avoid if you want to have a chance of attracting clients. We're going to go over all those things in just a second, but first, let's dive into what clients are actually searching for when they're looking for a therapist. This stuff is really interesting if you ask me, and I'm glad you're asking me. Before we even dive into what exactly people are clicking on in therapist directories, just for fun, let's get a good idea of when people are actually looking for a therapist. Now, I'm not certain about why people tend to look for counseling at specific times, but I have some educated guesses. For as long as I've been running therapist directories, Monday has been the #1 day that people visit the site to look for a therapist. And I get that, right? Mondays are the worst. It makes me think about adding a case of Mondays as a mental health issue. But in the past year, Monday was finally taken over by Tuesday by just 0.1%. Wednesday is close behind, and the graph looks like this. We can clearly see that Monday through Wednesday is when we feel like we need the most help. When the weekends come around, we are able to fool ourselves into thinking that we don't need therapy, but just wait until Monday and Susie from accounting is driving you up the wall. You're going to look for therapy. And apparently, the majority of people are looking for a therapist between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., which means people are getting to their jobs on Monday, doing like an hour or 2 of work, and then looking for a therapist until it's almost time to go home, which makes sense because work sucks. So what can you do with this data? I don't know. I just thought you might find it interesting, although one thing that you could do, I guess, is you can take this data and you can time it with your marketing campaigns so that your campaigns can be in sync with when people are looking for counseling the most. So if you want to run your Facebook or Google ads between Monday and Thursday during work hours, you'll probably get the most bang for your buck during those times. You're welcome for the free advice. After someone on a directory enters the location, the vast majority of the time, the next thing they'll do is enter the issue that they want to get therapy for. Obviously, this matters to us because we want to come up and search for the issues that they're choosing. Now, I probably don't have to say this since I'm only speaking to very ethical therapists out there, but you should not select an issue just because it's a popular one that's selected by clients. You should be able to competently treat that issue as well. Also, sort of side note, the more issues that you choose, the less it looks like you're a competent therapist. This has been reported to me by focus groups that I run for people that are looking for therapists. And it makes sense if you think about it, right? If you drive a BMW, do you want to take your BMW to a repair shop that only works on high-end, top-of-the-line cars? Or do you want to take it to a shop that treats every car made no matter what? No, you want to take it to the specialty shop. Clients want to go to a therapist that specializes in mental health issues that apply to them. Personally, I enjoy treating clients that struggle with anxiety in their relationships. All the issues that I've selected on my profile have to do with feeling anxious in a relationship. We'll get into this sort of thing a bit more a little later on. Okay, back to the top issues selected. I bet you can guess what the top 3 issues are. All 3 of them are constantly changing places with each other. but the last time I looked at the data, they appeared in this order. Number 1 is anxiety, 2 is relationship issues, and 3 is depression. Something to be aware of is that these top 3 issues are chosen over 40% of the time, which means almost half of the people looking for a therapist are dealing with one of these issues. And that's kind of stunning to me. But it also makes sense. These are the issues that people talk about the most, and they cover so much of the feelings that we experience. So, is it important that you treat these issues? Well, it would be a good idea to be displayed in over 40% of the searches, but also, pretty much every therapist treats these issues, so you might be buried in a sea of other therapist profiles. In the end, I think you should select these issues if you treat them because there's just tons of people that are looking for help in these areas. Also, when someone chooses one of the top 3 issues, there's a good chance they'll start filtering down even more, which could raise you to the top of the heap. To fill out the top 10, the next 7 most popular issues selected are child and adolescent issues, PTSD, LGBTQ issues, personal growth or self-esteem, gender identity, family conflict, and loss or grief. As you can see, there's a sharp drop in percentage starting with child and adolescent issues, but it's still a popular choice selected almost 1 out of every 20 times. Something to keep in mind is that I'm collecting this data from 2 sources, the local directory that I run in Portland and the national directory at TherapyDen.com. So the top issues may be different in other cities, but whenever I've run the numbers in the last 5 years, these top 10 are pretty consistent. The main thing that you should get from this data is that if you only treat 1 or 2 of the top 10 issues, that might be why you're not getting a lot of clients from directories. Therapist profiles that attract a good amount of referrals have selected at least 5 of these issues. And as you'd imagine, the more that you can competently treat, the more you'll show up in search results. The couple issues I'll call out on this list that have been steadily moving up the list are gender identity and LGBTQ issues. Personally, I'm happy to see that folks who are presenting with those issues are reaching out more to get help from therapists. I will stress, however, that if you are not fully competent in treating these issues, then please do not select them. You could hurt and cause damage to clients who want help in these areas. On TherapyDen, I've specifically asked counselors when choosing their specialized experience to only check off these boxes if they're specifically trained in these areas. It's not okay to select these issues purely for marketing purposes. You're an irresponsible therapist if you do this, and you're damaging the whole field. The same goes for other issues on TherapyDen, such as racial identity, white privilege, body image issues, eating disorders, cultural and systemic oppression, immigration, kink and sexual outsider, poly and open relationships, veterans and military service. But really, the same could be said for any issue on the directory sites. But I'm calling out these issues because a lot of times these clients are coming in feeling really vulnerable and untrusting of the mental health field. So if you cause damage to them, they may never come back and give it another shot. So think about it hard and be careful about what you're choosing. And if you're curious what the least selected issue is, it's learning disorder. So if you're a therapist that only treats learning disorders, I may not be able to help you. While filtering for therapists based on the treatment orientation is not as popular as filtering for issues, its use has been increasing over the past 5 years. The data is also interesting to look at because the general public doesn't know much about treatment interventions, although they're increasingly asking for the option to use it as a filter. So keep in mind that you'll appear in more searches if you happen to use the top treatments, but again, you should only select them if you're trained in them. I'm sorry I sound like a broken record. So here we go. The top 6 treatment orientations selected by clients are cognitive behavioral treatment, CBT, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR, mindfulness-based, somatic therapy, so like body-centered, dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, and emotionally focused therapy, EFT. I chose to show you the top 6 because there is a pretty steep decline from number 6 to 7. Why are these the top selected? I don't know. Your guess is probably as good as mine. I think these 6 interventions all have like popular buzzwords or are currently trending in pop psychology. The least selected treatment is equine-assisted therapy. So if you're treating learning disorders with equine-assisted therapy, I'd be the first to sign up because that sounds amazing, but unfortunately, I'd probably be your only client. Before we start getting into what you should write on your profile, we're going to make a quick stop into Niche Town and answer the age-old question, should therapists have a niche? Yes, question answered. It's important to have a niche, especially when developing your therapist profile, because the space that you have to present yourself in is just one web page instead of many pages on your own website. And remember, like I said before, even though you might want to pick a ton of issues, you shouldn't. It's true, the more issues you select, the more you'll come up in search results, which could lead to more profile views. But therapists that do this have very poor conversion rates when it comes to clients reaching out and asking for an appointment. You look like a boring generalist that has chosen a ton of specialties and will be thrown in the generalist pile, which is a very large pile, never to be visited again. It's quite sad. Here's a real life story proving my point. A long time ago, when I was a baby therapist, I started my practice and all of a sudden started to experience panic attacks while talking to clients. I hadn't experienced real panic before, and as I'm sure you know, it's a horrible and frightening feeling. One of the ways the panic would manifest during a session would be through a strong sensation of needing to pee. The client would sit down, start talking, and it felt like I was going to pee my pants. And sometimes it felt like I was actively peeing my pants. I never did, thank God, but I'm telling you this story because when I frantically looked around for a therapist on directory sites, I only reached out to therapists that specialized in panic. I wanted a therapist that had devoted their whole career to panic attacks so that I could plop down in their office and tell them that if they don't help me, then I'm going to pee my pants in front of all my clients. So I found a therapist that specialized in panic, and soon my pee pants fear totally went away. Rarely is someone looking for a therapist that's a generalist. So don't fall into that trap that so many therapists do. And don't worry too much about only attracting one type of niche client. My niche is working with clients who are anxious in relationships, but I have never had over 50% of clients that are all anxious in their relationship. My current clients know me as a therapist who laughs a lot and can really understand the perils of being in your 20s and 30s, so they refer their friends, and my practice is a motley crew of different mental health issues. But if you're really scared of only attracting one type of client, you can have 3 different profiles on 3 different websites that focus on 3 different specialties of yours. You by no means need to do this, but it's available to you if you really want to try that out. Also, you don't have to choose a niche for life. You can change it as you evolve as a therapist. My first niche was treating middle school boys, then it changed to parenting, then I could not stand parents, and I focused on hipsters that felt lost in the world, and now I work with anxiety-ridden people who have a hard time functioning in a close relationship. As you grow, your niche evolves and your clients change with you, so don't be scared about being stuck serving one population forever. Okay, so now that you're clear about choosing a niche, let's move on to your actual profile. It's what you all came here for, right? That was me. Whether we like it or not, one of the most important things about your profile is your picture. It's the first impression that all potential clients will judge you on while scrolling through the listings. So if you don't put proper care into uploading a picture that will get you clicks, then you might as well not list yourself on a directory site at all. Your picture is likely on your private practice website as well. It may be on all of your other marketing material too, so I urge everyone to devote the proper energy to this very important detail. Lucky for you, I have collected data on what photos get clicked the most, and if you followed my work before in the past, then you may already know about the tips that I've provided, but the set of tips I'm going to give you today have all been recently updated to include the data that I've collected through my national therapy directory at TherapyDen. First, let's go over 3 things that I often encounter that don't work when it comes to a profile picture. Do not upload anything other than a photo of you. That means no logo photos. As beautiful as your plant-based logo is, people don't want to see a picture of it on your profile. They want to see the face of the person they'll be staring at as they talk about all their most personal and vulnerable problems. Displaying your logo, even if you paid a ton of money for it, does nothing to connect with new clients. Clients seeing your face is an important way to start developing the initial rapport. You wouldn't start a session with your logo painted on your face, and you shouldn't upload an image of it to your listing. Save it for your website. It belongs there. No selfies, please. That is unless you're spectacular at taking a selfie. If you've got some like amazing selfie skills like Kim, then go for it. And if an obvious selfie fits the brand that you're trying to create, then okay. But in all other instances, please don't take a selfie. It's probably not as fantastic as you think it is. That being said, therapists with good selfie photos do get clicked on, but therapists with bad selfie photos do not get clicked on. So why risk it, right? Selfies often look blurry and unfocused or dark with weird shadows. It makes your professional photo look like a social media profile. And selfies are usually shot at a weird angle, which makes you look a little cutesy. And therapist photos are clicked on more when they appear professional, not cutesy. Also, don't be so stiff. Therapists that appear stiff, serious, poker-faced, and humorless receive lower clicks. You may think you're taking a very professional photo that must come off as very thoughtful, but that doesn't translate very well. Photos like that appear to make you appear closed off and cold. You'll be received as the disapproving parent, and while that feeling could create good material to process while in session with a client, it does nothing for you when you're attempting to attract more clients to your practice. Okay, now that we have what not to do out of the way, let's talk about what should be included in all your photos. And let's start with the most controversial and heavily debated suggestion. I'm sure you're all well aware of it. Should you include your dog in the photo? First of all, the answer is an obvious yes if you own my dog. This is Josh, and he is fucking adorable. Look at this guy. If he were in my photo, then I guarantee you would click on it. Or if it was only him in the photo, you would definitely click on it. And having him in my photo signifies that I'm a therapist you can trust, right? But in all seriousness, if you have a dog in your photo, you get clicked on almost twice as much. It works. But I've heard rumblings from other therapists and practice builders out there that it's not a good idea to throw your dog in the photo, even if it's the case that you'll get more profile views. The argument is that you don't look professional and people are just clicking to see your dog and not really checking out your therapist skills. Honestly, that's a fair critique. That could very well be happening and maybe scaring off some cat people out there that don't trust dog people. But if that's the case, then you don't want those cat people as clients, do you? I mean, they're probably way too far gone to really help anyway. Yeah, that person is untreatable and you know it. However, having your dog in your photo can also convey warmth, care, love, and playfulness. Dogs can show off that you have a fun and easygoing personality. Those are good things to convey in a photo. And the data that I have collected that shows more people click on photos with dogs do not show a steep decline in client conversion rate. If people were clicking on the photo just to see a close-up of your cute pup, then my analytics would show me that the profile has a much lower conversion rate, and that's not the case. So, my informed and data-driven suggestion is to include your dog, but only if it really fits your brand. If the dog does something to show a side of you that you want clients to see, then it's a good idea. But if you're just using your pooch as clickbait, then, I don't know, leave them out. Also, if your dog isn't into it, then it's probably not a good idea. Josh would love to be in a photo with me, but he's such a ham and I don't like sharing the spotlight, so sorry, Joshy. Next tip, take a high quality picture. My suggestion is to invest in a photo shoot with a professional photographer. That way you don't have to worry about doing it yourself, and the money that you spend on the photographer will go a very long way. You can use that snazzy photo in all your marketing materials for years to come. I highly recommend it. But if you can't or don't want to hire a professional, then at the very least, try to make it look professional. Here are some quick tips. Go outside. The light is always so much better when you're outside. Find something green or natural to stand in front of. Maybe go to a park or find some trees or a nice looking garden. Tip 2, take a photo with good contrast. What I mean by that is that you should take a photo that has a blurry background. The blurry background will make you look sharp and stand out in the foreground. Lots of smartphones can create this effect for you. Just be sure to toggle the portrait mode on your iPhone or your Android. As you can see, the photo turns out quite well. Next tip, be authentically you. The best way to show up as who you really are is to have a real smile. So if your partner or your friend is taking your photo with you, try to loosen up a bit. Take a whole bunch of photos. Don't just take a handful. Take 100 photos and make sure half of them are candid. Be playful. The more authentic you come across in your photo, the more clicks you'll end up getting. Use a medium crop on your photo so that it includes everything between your waist, or at least your shoulders, and the top of your head. Full body shots don't get as many clicks as photos that are cropped in a bit closer. This could be because more people are searching for a therapist on their phones that have smaller screens and create tiny profile pictures, but the opposite is true here as well. Don't crop the photo so close on your face that people can see all your clogged pores. That's also a turnoff. Here are some of my favorite photos that just happen to attract a lot of clicks to profiles. You can see that they all look nice, confident, authentic, comfortable, and professional. The last suggestion I have is to play around with the different photos. Change it up every 3 or 4 months. See if some photos work better than others. You don't have to stick with just one for your whole career, and it's kind of fun. It's kind of a fun way to experiment with your profiles. So, now that you know everything that you need to know about photos, let's move on to the actual words that you're going to type. The most important 2 sentences you'll write are the first ones. While browsing through the profiles, the client will notice your photo and a couple of sentences next to it. Whatever you do, make sure you don't write something generic. These are the 2 sentences that will likely determine whether or not someone clicks through to view your profile. These 2 sentences, which I'll call your intro, need to resonate with your ideal client. You need to think about the niche that you've decided to focus on and speak directly to that specific client. Let's take a look at where they show up on Psychology Today, Good Therapy, and TherapyDen. First, real quick, what not to do. Don't write intros like these. I'm a therapist with 15 years of experience. Or, I use CBT and narrative therapy. Call me for an appointment. Or, my name is Jeff and I'm a therapist in Portland. Boring. All those intros are super dull and people will scroll right past them, and you'll be thrown in the generalist pile and never looked at again. Unfortunately, most therapists write intros like these. Fortunately for you, however, your intro will be different and easily stand out from the rest. Now let's talk about how to craft the perfect intro. All you need to do is speak directly to their experience. Your ideal client needs to really connect with your intro. So imagine them scrolling through all the profiles and come up with something that will really tap into their emotional experience. Pretend like you can read their thoughts and understand their pain points. Now write an intro that gives them a feeling of relief and a feeling of knowing that you're obviously their best match. For example, let's say the niche you're appealing to is the same as mine, working with clients that feel anxious in relationships. You could say something like, I help people in anxious relationships feel a lot less anxious. Or, are you scared that you're too needy in relationships? I can help you with that. Let's say your ideal client is a single parent struggling to raise their kids. Your intro could be, I help single parents find balance and create structure for their children. Or, are you a single parent? You must be exhausted. I can help you feel a lot less stressed. Or maybe your ideal client is part of the LGBTQ community and they're dealing with discrimination. You might say, I am queer and I help fellow queer people deal with microaggressions and discrimination. Or, I passionately fight for LGBTQ rights. I help queer people feel stronger and more confident. When coming up with these types of intros, think about the clients that you're already working with and have a good relationship with. There are things that you've said that have helped them feel relief and know that they're in good hands with you. Try to speak from that same place. That's all there really is to it. If you want a foolproof formula, all you have to do is fill in the blank. I help, and then name your ideal client, feel, and then name the feeling or relief or the new healthy behavior that they'll experience. However, I don't want to box you into just one formula. You can throw that template out as long as you promise not to make your intro boring and dull. You can use the space to display your personality. You can write an authentic message about who you are and how you counsel people. Be funny, be creative, be different. The goal is to stand out against all other general and predictable intros that you see out there. Lastly, I'll leave you with the exact character count of how long your intros can be. Psychology Today is the first couple of lines, and they add up to 190 characters. Good Therapy allows you 200 characters of space, while TherapyDen gives you 140 characters. Okay, let's move on to the next section. Each directory has a different name for the first major content block. Good Therapy labels it My Approach to Helping. TherapyDen calls it the About My Client section. And Psychology Today doesn't give it a headline. They just present it as your first paragraph. Each directory has their own instructions and guidance. Psychology Today and Good Therapy don't give bad advice, but they don't give great advice. My suggestion is to ignore their prompt and follow TherapyDen's lead. TherapyDen suggests that in this space you talk about your ideal client, the populations and issues that you best serve. You can use it as an opportunity to connect with prospective clients and help them see themselves in your practice. Focusing your content on the prospective client reading your profile rather than on yourself, as amazing as you are, will help them see themselves as part of your practice and connect with your profile. So, once again, you'll be going back to the niche that you've identified for your practice. The first content block is important because it gives you space to really explain what type of client you work with. You can set the scene a bit better than your intro, but if you want to use your intro as inspiration, you should just continue to expand on what you've already written. What works best and attracts the most client referrals is when you fully and completely identify your client's emotional experience and assure them that you get it. You don't judge it, and you can hold space for it, and that you understand them better than anyone else. You should imagine that they're sitting in front of you in their session, and they just told you about why they're coming in to see you. Now you want to make them feel safe in your office and assure them that you can help. Here's an example for a client that is seeking help for anxiety attacks. I want you to really imagine that anxiety has you by the throat and you have no idea how to find relief. Are you always a little bit afraid that an anxiety attack is waiting around the corner? Have you been hit with a surprise anxiety more times than you can count? I know exactly what you're feeling. The pounding chest, the shortness of breath, the feeling that the walls are closing in and you need a way out now. Attacks can be terrifying, and I don't want you to suffer from them anymore. Holistic practices can reduce anxiety tremendously, and I look forward to teaching you tools to take your life back. After reading that, a wave of relief would wash over the client suffering from anxiety. The client feels heard, understood, and confident that you understand their experience and can help them. They can read that statement and see themselves in it. And they may also start feeling hope that they can move through their problem, which might be the first time in a long time that they have felt this way. See, you're already helping them, and your words can be that powerful. Let's look at another example that targets clients who are hiding their depression from everyone. Are you feeling sad but you're too ashamed or embarrassed to tell anyone about it? Do you force a smile on your face but inside you're feeling despair and depression? Do you feel completely confused because your life looks good on paper? Are you surrounded by people that are envious or jealous of your life, which makes you feel guilty about not enjoying it? Together, you and I will figure out what's really going on. There is a reason for your sadness, and I want to discover where it's coming from with you. I'll help you shed light on your discontent so that you don't have to feel like a fraud or a crazy person. It's going to be okay. We are going to figure this out together. I get what's happening. If you were a closeted depressed person, you would feel so good reading that paragraph. Basically, what you do is this. First, write a few sentences describing how your client is feeling and what their reality is. You're shooting to empathize with their situation, but don't be scared to over-empathize with it. Really go for those deep feelings that they may not even be aware of. Pretend like you're tapping into their heart and subconscious mind, not in a creepy way, but in a caring and compassionate way. Then finish it up by providing them with a feeling of hope and relief. What do you want them to achieve in therapy with you? How do you want them to feel in their last session with you? What type of clarity do you want to provide? And also, why are you the one to give it to them? Write a sentence or two about what makes you qualified or what you'll do to help them. Again, your intro and first content blocks is almost entirely about your client and what they're going through. This is how you pull them in. This is what therapists with the most client referrals do on the directories that I run. Now that you know what to do in these sections, you've probably figured out what not to do. Don't talk about your credentials as a therapist. We'll get there a little later on, I promise. Don't give boring facts about your practice that has nothing to do with your ideal client's presenting problem. And don't just copy and paste random stuff from your website. Be deliberate, connect with your client, and use your therapy language that you're so good at tapping into during your session. Now, let's move on to the next content block. The second content block is a little more about you and your therapy practice, but don't be fooled into thinking it's only about you because, surprise, it's not. It's also about your ideal client. I know this is getting a little predictable, but it's important to make sure that the focus stays on your client because they still want to see themselves in your profile. That's the most important thing about your profile in its entirety. So let's see what the directory suggests for the block of content. Psychology Today asks you to write about how you can help and about the specialties that you offer. Good Therapy suggests you include more info about your practice and any additional info you wish to share. TherapyDen asks you to elaborate on your credentials, experience, and specialties. But the key sentence is the last one that asks you to connect whatever you say about yourself to a client benefit in some way. That last sentence should be underlined and put in bold. Everything you say about yourself must be tied back to your client niche. So it only goes in if it's about your client in the end. A quick word on what not to do in this section. No jargon. No, don't do it. You should write as if you're communicating to an 8th grader that doesn't know anything about therapy. So drop the impressive and smart sounding words. That's not how to connect with clients. And don't use flowery and long-winded language. You should be direct, concise, and straightforward. You're not writing a novel. There isn't enough space for that anyways. You're writing a list of why you're a good fit for them in paragraph form. And don't be smug. While it's okay and encouraged to show off your expertise and competence in this section, it's not okay to be smug and act like you're the best thing ever. Confidence in your craft is attractive. Acting like your fancy PhD from Harvard is the best thing ever is not attractive. Now, let's look at an example and go back to our client that's struggling with anxiety attacks. In our previous content block, we focused on how the anxiety feels and how you don't want them to suffer anymore and that you have tools for them. Your second content block might look something like this. The tools that I'll provide you with are tools that I have been perfecting over my career helping people just like you. I have dozens of them. My goal for you is to have at least 5 different tools and techniques that you can carry with you at all times. So no matter where you go, you'll always have access to discrete exercises that can quickly create relief. I am direct and I'm solution focused. We'll work collaboratively to address the anxiety attacks that are bothering you right now. We'll start with what's going on in the moment and how to get control over your body and thoughts. For the past 10 years, my practice has been focused on helping people get rid of anxiety. I have attended trainings that teach leading edge techniques. We'll address what's going on in your brain when you feel anxious and how to get in touch with different parts of your brain to find relief. We'll discuss what happens to your body when fear takes over so you can learn how to quickly calm down. You'll gain resilience so that attacks don't continue in the future. As you can see, I talk a good deal about my approach and background, right? I mentioned I use tools and techniques. I have dozens of them. I am direct and solution focused. I work collaboratively. I start with the here and now. I've been specializing in anxiety for 10 years and I've gone to many trainings. We'll talk about brain science and body-centered and I'll improve your emotional resilience. And every time I mentioned what I would do or why I'm qualified, I tied it back to the client suffering from anxiety. Simple. Let's do another and revisit the client that is hiding their depression from the world. You don't need to feel ashamed of your feelings anymore. I've created a safe space for you to talk about your feelings with zero judgment. You and I will gently bump up against the feelings of depression so that you don't get swallowed up by them. I will never force you to talk about something that you don't want to talk about. I can handle anything that you tell me. I have been specializing in treating depression since 2005. There is a way to break free from the grips of your sadness, and I can help you explore the different pathways to health. I want to explore the roots of your depression and figure out where it came from. Shedding light on how your depression was created often provides a powerful healing experience. If it turns out that you need to make big changes in your life, I can act as your trusty co-pilot that lights the way and provides you with a safety net and a place to explore your options and their possible consequences. If I need to challenge you, I'll do it gently and only when it provides opportunity for growth. How great is that? Simple and direct language, an outline of what therapy sessions will be like. The therapist takes a client-centered approach and also dabbles in psychodynamic therapy, but that therapy speak isn't used, and instead it's explained in plain English. Basically, you should be more specific in this section about what you're going to do and why it's going to benefit the client. Keep layering on the empathy while providing more reasons to feel hopeful if they choose to work with you. Now, let's move on to the third and final section. The last block of content is my favorite, and this is where I encourage you to be creative and authentic. It's also the section where you'll end by motivating the client to make a positive step in their life and reach out to schedule an appointment or a consultation. In this section, I still want you to keep your ideal client in mind, but I encourage you to talk more about yourself. You don't need to tie everything back to your client niche if you don't want to. Let's take a quick look at what the different directories encourage you to say. Psychology Today asks you to build empathy with the client and invite them to reach out to you. They specifically ask you to not include contact information. They do this because they want the client to use their form or the special phone number that they've assigned to your profile so they can track their referrals for you. You can ignore that prompt, put your contact info in there if you want to. Good Therapy has some optional headlines you can use, which I have to admit is a nice touch. Personally, I like the headlines that reveal more about who you really are. The ones I would pick are my guiding ethical principles, or how my own struggles made me a better therapist, or my view on the nature of disorders. And TherapyDen asks you to write about your personal beliefs and interests. They go on to suggest that you share more about yourself with prospective clients. They encourage you to talk about your values, your beliefs, causes, or social platforms that you support or identify with. For example, are you an active member of the LGBTQ community or the Black Lives Matters movement? Do you volunteer with a suicide prevention hotline or an animal shelter? This field is optional, but writing more about who you are and what you stand for will help visitors connect with you. As a clinically trained therapist, you might be turned off by the suggestions made by TherapyDen. After all, weren't we told to be blank slates and not share any personal info unless it's clinically appropriate? Keep in mind that some truly old white men came up with this rule a very long time ago. And maybe, just maybe, it doesn't have to apply to how therapists market themselves in this modern world. In fact, in all of my focus groups conducted with people looking for therapists, they want to know that there is a value match between them and their counselor. Knowing that the counselor matches their core belief systems is usually the final thing they want to know when reaching out to make an appointment. I know that this makes some therapists squirm a bit. I totally get that. I too was trained not to be this open, especially in my marketing. But I want to remind you that all these suggestions are based on data that I've collected from my therapist directories and interviews I've conducted with people that are seeking help. So, with that being said, if you don't want to share your personal beliefs and values, then by all means, do not share. You don't have to follow 100% of these suggestions. I don't even follow 100%. So either share a lot or share a little or don't share at all. It's totally up to you. I'm just here to tell you what works and what doesn't work. Okay, so let's get back to what you should write. You should use this last content block as a way to show your clients who you are and what you stand for. They should start to get to know the human side of you so that they can feel comfortable sitting in a room with you. What are your political or spiritual beliefs? What are your guiding principles? What guides you as a therapist? How do you feel about therapeutic philosophies? What's important to you? Ideally, who you really are and what you believe in will make your ideal client feel very comfortable sitting in a room with you. So keep them in mind when crafting your content. Here's an example for a therapist that is treating clients with anxiety attacks and who also doesn't mind sharing a lot of personal information. I believe that everyone can change and grow at any time in their lives. I don't believe that there is a limit to human capacity. I believe that we are all born as good people. I think the main reason we develop mental health issues is because they are unhealthy learned behaviors that we have picked up along the way. Which means that I think you can unlearn the faulty behaviors and replace them with healthy ones. I come from a family of healers that taught me how to truly be there for people. My parents taught me to never judge anyone and always be open to the beauty of every single person, no matter what. As a child, I suffered from severe anxiety and panic attacks. Through my own therapy, I learned how to handle my anxiety and move past it so that it didn't have control over me. I haven't had a panic attack in years, and I want you to feel the same freedom that I experience every day. I believe the Portland Trailblazers are the best team in the NBA, but I will not judge you if you're not aware of that obvious fact. I am married with 2 young children, and my family believes in equal rights for all. I don't discriminate against anyone, and I accept all for who they authentically are. I make it a point to participate in marches and community actions that support the LGBTQ community. If you want to learn more about how I can help, shoot me a message or visit my website. I look forward to working with you. Many of the beliefs listed would probably resonate with someone that wants to unlearn their anxious thoughts and behavior. The therapist also shared about their personal journey with anxiety, which is a great way to connect with someone else who is suffering from the same thing. They also show off a bit of humor while connecting with the city that they live in while they bring up their local basketball team. And they end with a call to action that encourages the client to reach out. Hopefully, after reading this, the client will see that the therapist is a real person that they can really connect with. It helps that the therapist was open about so many things. Now, let's take a look at what the other therapist who treats depression and who doesn't really want to share very much about themselves could say. I believe every person has the potential for change. I have witnessed powerful healing and growth in my presence. Being a therapist is truly a gift, and I feel privileged to help everyone who steps into my office. I believe that therapy should be a safe space that will always remain confidential. I believe that therapeutic relationships are naturally healing, and even though what we talk about is important, I know that the relationship itself does a lot of the work. While I believe that depression and sadness is a natural part of life, I don't think it should come saddled with shame and guilt. When I was younger, I had a hard time being honest and congruent with how I felt inside. And that is what initially attracted me to this work. I believe that being free from fear and shame is a human right. If you are fed up with feeling bad and you're ready to feel relief, I want you to contact me so that we can work together to create a better life for you. Now, this therapist didn't share too much about who they personally are, but it still came off as refreshing and authentic. The potential client can still get an idea of who this therapist is and what their belief systems are. Basically, in this section, you should ask yourself how open you feel comfortable being. Create a list of things that you want to share about yourself so that you're not just some boring general therapist. And when you can, connect your story about who you really are to how it might help your ideal client feel relief. Okay, I have just one more suggestion that can really put your profile head and shoulders above the rest. TherapyDen and GoodTherapy allow you to upload a YouTube video. You should do this. You don't need to be a professional videographer to make a decent video. All you need to do is sit in your office, open the window to let some light in, and set your phone on the desk in front of you after you hit record. You could even just record a video sitting in front of your laptop with a built-in camera. Don't get too hung up on style, especially these days with everything being so DIY. Leave production value to Hollywood. Wondering what you should put in your video? Don't overthink it. You can repeat what you've already said in your profile, just use slightly different words, or even the same words. What you say exactly isn't as important as your energy and how you come off. You can talk directly to your ideal client about why you'd be a good match, or you can give tips for a mental health issue and how to find relief. Either way, be authentically you and try to have a little fun with it. It'll go a long way. Okay. Now you know everything you need to know and probably a whole lot more about how to have a successful therapist profile. You may have also learned about a beautiful new and exciting therapist directory, TherapyDen.com. TherapyDen is an alternative to Psychology Today and Good Therapy. TherapyDen sets itself apart by not just meeting the needs of the general population, but also meeting the needs of the disenfranchised groups. As a gift to all of you, here is a promo code to get your first 6 months free on the site. Oh, and like I said at the beginning of this video, you'll get free access to my 7-part SEO course if you sign up for a profile on TherapyDen. The link to the course will be in the member benefits section after you activate your profile. My life is all about therapist directories, and I know that they can work wonders for us and for the clients that use them to find help. Therapist directories have a small monthly fee that can bring a huge return on investment. They allow people to easily find a counselor that is a good match. And when you choose to invest a monthly fee in a more progressive therapist directory like TherapyDen, it forces old, outdated sites like Psychology Today to update their functionality and get with the times. Thank you for watching this video, and thanks for considering signing up for TherapyDen. Bye.